The Middle East is ablaze. I know you're thinking this headline could have been from last month, 6 years ago, 25 years ago, and it could be the one for tomorrow or 6 weeks from tomorrow. This seems to be a recurring situation here, and the parties that are involved here show no evidence that this is going to go away anytime soon. And one of the key reasons why I argue the United States needs to disconnect itself from the Middle East. It is no longer an area of vital strategic interest. It is of interest, but not vital strategic interest as it once was, because of our ability to produce petroleum products at home and of our ability to project power if we need it. But by staying intimately involved, we keep ourselves involved in every act of instability. And based on the fundamentals that were involved in the one happened overnight in Damascus in the last few days, actually, this will continue. And the longer we stay in there, the more it's going to happen. This current situation here, you can see this was on the Middle Eastern television here when one of the presenters, when the Israeli airstrike hit yesterday, and this is the Syrian Defense Ministry. This is a massive attack here, and you see that the Israelis just literally leveled the building. Just a huge issue. There was also an airstrike against the presidential palace here. So there's some definite information and messages being sent from Israel to Syria here. And in case you're just wondering what in the world is going on here, why the big explosion here, I'm going to get into that, but we have to get a bit of a running start, because how we got here is as important as where we're at now and where it's going next. And as you may recall, there was a lot of celebration last December when Bashar al-Assad was driven out of power. The U.S. had been trying to get a regime change there since at least 2011, and we'd been periodically during the Obama administration helping all these different one violent Islamic group against another violent Islamic group, all trying to maybe help overthrow the regime. And the idea, as so often happens in these situations where we get a regime change, there's some magical hope that the guy that takes charge or the group that takes charge is going to somehow be better than the one before and is going to be on our side. Yay. And it never happens. I mean, I can't think of a time when we had a regime change that worked out well for us. This one is no surprise, because after a weakening of the Assad regime for such a long period of time and a lot of his own incompetence, this group led by HTS, it was called Harar al-Sham. Let's see, al-Sham. Can't remember. Sorry, can't get myself tongue-tied on that. It was an Islamic group, used to be allied with ISIS, led by a guy who used to call himself al-Jilani, now calls himself Sharah. I don't know. He's trying to have a makeover to make himself more appealing to the United States and the West, et cetera, to get help. Well, that seemed to have been working at first, but now not so much. Because after Assad was driven from power, you may recall that we talked about this at the time, and we said, I'm a little holding off on popping the corks on the champagne bottles about how great this is going to be, because, I mean, we specifically said at the time, listen, there's a lot still at play here. And the country of Syria has Turkish troops in the northern part, American troops in the eastern part. There's the Syrian Democratic Forces that are operating there, a lot of different tribes, and even the coalition that HTS assembled to help drive Assad out was itself going to have a hard time keeping all that together, and the other tribes elsewhere in the country that may or may not be appealed by going and working with the HTS. So I said, there's a lot of work to do. Well, that's how it's playing out. And so Sharaa now has been trying for quite a while to bring Syria under control by trying to placate Turkey up in their north and Israel in the south, because in the immediate aftermath, Israel drove further from the Golan Heights, which, by the way, is still technically Syrian territory, but they moved up further in that, more in the direction of Damascus, allegedly to help stabilize the situation. But of course, they haven't left from there, and there's a lot of questions as to, is Israel going to annex part of that? Are they going to add that to a so-called Greater Israel? What is their plan? They're not saying, other than they're not going anywhere at the time. And the claim always is, well, this is for Israeli national security. We have to have this in place here. So you have to wonder what in the world would cause Israel to have to, or to feel that it had to attack Damascus and blow up the Ministry of Defense building and attack the presidential palace. We have to wonder, was that intended as a signal to Sharah, or did Israel actually try to assassinate the new leader? We don't actually know right now. All we know is that the building was it, and it definitely got the attention of al-Sharah. But let's look at what the United States was saying at the time. Now, this was during the Biden administration, so you got to understand that that's different than the current administration, but there is so much continuity in foreign policy, especially in the Middle East, between the American government. But here's how we pitched it by Secretary Blinken, who was asking the immediate aftermath, what next?
We have impressed upon everyone we've been in contact with the importance of helping find Austin Tice and bringing him home. And we've also shared the principles that I just laid out for our ongoing support, principles, again, that have now been adopted by countries throughout the region and well beyond. And we've communicated those.
That's direct contact.
That's direct contact, yes. All of this was unthinkable just a week ago. And it does speak to the promise of this moment. We're determined to work with the Syrian people to shape a future that lives up to that promise. Today's agreement produced real progress toward that shared goal.
Yeah, that promise, that shared goal, and bring peace to Syria. Why did anyone ever have a fantasy that we're going to help usher in peace into Syria when all of the evidence showed you that all the components and elements were there for expanded violence? There was no reason to have optimism there. And by the way, he was talking there about Austin Tice, which is an American that's been held by Syria for quite some time. And he said, yeah, we're working to get him home. We never got him home. He still isn't home. There's still no progress on that. So whatever we said to Syria, whatever help we gave them, there was no quid pro quo. We just gave them this topic here. And then the current administration with President Trump, they continued on. And now then they're embracing Sharaa, and they let go a lot of the sanctions on him. We got nothing for it. We didn't even get our citizen back here. And by all accounts, the claim anyway is that our intelligence says that he's still being held somewhere. And one has to wonder, such a small thing, just to get one of our citizens back, why have we not gotten him back? And yet we gave them acknowledgement. We embraced now Sharaa, the leader. It's like we're giving something in just this vain hope that somehow things are going to work out good. And I don't know why we seem to think that, because, again, all the evidence is showing the opposite. And this explosion here right now, this started just a number of days ago, by the way, this current outbreak here. By all accounts, the situation has been simmering as Sharah has been trying to consolidate control over the whole country. He wants to be able to have unity among all the disparate tribes and the Bedouins and the Druze and all the different kinds of Alawites, etc. He's trying to get consolidated control over all that. And a lot of them don't want to come. A lot of them say, hey, we're not, because you have a lot of religious differences as well. And a lot of them say, hey, we're not keen on your side, because of course he used to lead al-Nusra, which was an al-Qaeda offshoot. He used to be a part of ISIS, etc. A lot of people don't want to be associated with that guy, thinking you may have changed your clothes, you may have trimmed your beard, but you're still the same guy that you were before. So that's kept a lot of people in Syria from being embraced by that. Well, this current situation happened in Suwayda, in the southern part of the southern part of Syria, when, according to reports, some Bedouin tribe members actually murdered a Druze person on the street, just robbed him or something and killed him, apparently in broad daylight. And so to try and get control of the situation, Sharah sent Syrian troops into the area. Well, apparently the Druze got some either bad information or somebody intentionally gave some disinformation and said, no, they're after us. The Syrians are coming after us. And then that started some clashes. And then once the Syrian troops were fired upon, then they started firing back. And then you just had this whole explosion. Ended up, at least as of yesterday, there were over 300 have been killed. Lots of people were fighting. Then I think the Syrians sent even more reinforcements into the area, which caused the Druze to fight even harder. And then the violence escalated, etc. And then into this, Israel said that our Druze brothers, we're going to launch this attack to take care of them and to help them out. Here's how Netanyahu put it.
My brothers, The Druze citizens of Israel, the situation in Suwayda, the situation in southwestern Syria is very serious. The IDF is operating. The Air Force is operating. Other forces are operating. We are acting to save our Druze brothers and to eliminate the regime's gangs.
You know, when I heard that first statement or that phrase, our Druze brothers, I'm thinking, you know, Netanyahu is not a warm and cuddly kind of a guy. Doesn't strike me as the kind that says going to say, hey, we're going to loan out the IDF and the Israeli Air Force to you to use in your country to keep our brothers safe there. Gary, if you can put that map up of the region, let me show you kind of where some of this has happened. This is going to kind of make some things make sense. These, that brown shaded area there, those are where a lot of Druze population of people live. You see some of that's up in Lebanon and Beirut, and then in the eastern part of Syria around Damascus. And then there's even some in Israel in the northern part there by Haifa, as you see. And then over they're concentrated. The most of them are in this area of Suwayda, as you see on the map in the lower right-hand corner. And that is where a lot of this violence took place. That's where a lot of it started. And literally within days, all of a sudden, Israel claims that it used its military to attack the presidential palace and the Ministry of Defense, where the operations, as they said, were being conducted. But you have to think, now, that seems like an awfully high escalation because of a local disturbance in one town in the southern part of Syria, when Israel has virtually no history of being really concerned about the Druze and, you know, taking up their cause with Syria, etc. So we have to wonder what else is going on. If you could put that map back up there, Gary, you see that kind of in the center of this, it's a grayed out area. It's called the Golan Heights. That is technically still a part of Syria, but it's where Israel captured in one of its wars against the Arab nations many, many years ago and has continued to occupy that. Well, they moved up even further, and I don't have that particular graphic on this map, but they once the al-Assad, Bashar al-Assad fell, they moved further beyond the Golan Heights, I think within like 30 miles, maybe even less than that, of Damascus. They moved quite a bit in there. And Israel wants to maintain its population there, or its position there. They have been asked by many people, why are you still in Syria? You know, you should leave. And he keeps not doing it. And in fact, if you can put that other headline up there, this is what Netanyahu is also saying. No Syrian forces are to head south of Damascus, which is an area that must be demilitarized. He said, we have set a clear policy in a video statement, demilitarizing the area south of Damascus from the Golan Heights to the Druze Mountains is the one red line. The second red line is protecting the brothers in the Druze in the mountains. He keeps using that term there. We will not allow military forces to descend south of Damascus. We will not allow the Druze to be harmed in Jabil Druze, says Netanyahu. Okay, listen, that's just doublespeak there. I mean, the evidence is very clear. What Netanyahu is trying to do is carve out a part of Syria. I mean, to tell another sovereign country that your own military cannot move south of its capital city. I mean, that's just at the face value. That's like, what? What are you saying? Because what you're telling me is right now that Syria and Sharah does not and will not have control of his own country. And now he's faced with the prospect, Sharah, is, does he press an issue? Does he go a little bit further? And does he risk literal war with Israel? Here's how Sharah himself said on Syrian television.
وهنا لجأ الكيان الإسرائيلي إلى استهداف موسع للمنشآت المدنية والحكومية لتقويض هذه الجهود، مما أدى إلى تعقيد الوضع بشكل كبير ودفع الأمور إلى تصعيد واسع النطاق لولا التدخل الفعال للوساطة الأمريكية والعربية والتركية التي أنقذت المنطقة من مصير مجهول. فكنا بين خيارين: الحرب المفتوحة مع الكيان الإسرائيلي على حساب أهلنا الدروز وأمنهم وزعزعة استقرار سوريا والمنطقة بأسرها، وبين فسح المجال لوجهاء ومشايخ الدروز للعودة إلى رشدهم وتغليب المصلحة الوطنية على من يريد تشويه سمعة أهل الجبل الكرام. فلسنا ممن يخشى الحرب، ونحن الذين قضينا أعمارنا في مواجهة التحديات والدفاع عن شعبنا، لكننا قدمنا مصلحة السوريين على الفوضى والدمار.
Well, we'll see how that works out, because I don't know if you could all read all the subtitles there in the bottom. But he's basically saying we had to choose between war and surrendering our brothers to Druze. He also uses that term, and the people of the mountain, as they're called. And, you have this situation where Sharaa is trying to put on a good face and to say, we care about our people and we care about stability, which I'm sure he does care about stability. And he's trying to placate enough of these tribes, which is going to be very, very difficult. That's the reason why there was a civil war in Syria from 2011 onward, because of the Bashar al-Assad group was unable to do that. So now he's got the same issues and some of the same fault lines that were there before, and he's trying to navigate that. And then you have Israel trying to take advantage of that, taking advantage of that in the south by carving out yet more of Syrian territory, and now telling him, the leader of Syria, that he can't even go south in his own country beneath his capital city. And of course, Sharaa puts on a big face of this. He has to, but here's the problem. He is powerless to do anything about it. If the government of Syria under Bashar al-Assad, when he had ostensible control of at least his army, and he was unable to do anything. You remember how many times the United States, whether it was I don't remember if Obama, but certainly Biden and Trump in their previous times, they both launched attacks into Syria for various reasons. They weren't able to do anything about it. Syria was the weakest of this so-called fertile Islamic crescent that was allegedly against Israel, etc. They were the weakest link in there, and they were always weak. So they're even weaker now that you have Sharaa trying to recover and build up the Syrian army, etc. So they definitely cannot take on Israel. So they're really powerless to do something against it. But by Israel moving in there, they also undercut his authority even within Syria, because everyone can see now that he's powerless to do anything about it. And they know that, and they see that Israel just, at least allegedly, came to the aid of the Druze in the north. And so now then you can see that there's not going to be any kind of stability for the foreseeable future. Why would they? The Druze now are even further away from doing anything of stability towards Sharaa. So by taking this action here, there is now more instability in Syria and by extension in the Middle East. Because if Israel wants security on its northern border, this is not the way to do it. Because now then you have a continuation of this situation where Israel wants to solve every problem with the barrel of a gun or a missile fired from an aircraft. And that has tactical utility periodically. But as we keep seeing, it solves nothing. The situation with the Houthis in Yemen remains an open sore and remains a source of periodic conflict. The situation with Hamas in the Gaza Strip, the situation with the Palestinians in the West Bank remain ongoing fighting. The fighting continues on there. There is still fighting despite the alleged ceasefire in Lebanon with Hezbollah, yet that continues to be attacked as well. So Israel keeps attacking into that area. And then we have this situation in Iran, which is basically just kind of everybody stopped shooting for a while and everybody's looking around, but nothing has been solved or solved. No diplomacy has even been attempted. As we put on our show yesterday with Professor Ted Postal, even the nuclear issue is far from solved. In fact, now it's worse than it was before because we don't have any international inspectors on the ground anymore. So we're just up to the hoping that Iran doesn't take action there. And you know that Israel is not keen to that. And as soon as they can lick their wounds enough and get enough missiles built back up and potentially try and solve the missile defense problem that they had from Iran, because they were increasing, as we've seen now in open source reporting, that the longer the war went on, the more effective the Iranian missiles were and the less effective the integrated air defense for Israel became. So they have to try and figure that out. But I promise you, with 100% certainty, nobody in Israel, least of all Benjamin Netanyahu, has given up his hope and this goal and this dream of destroying Iran. Now they just got to try to figure out a better way to do it, which is one of the reasons why we're concerned about whether that might compel Iran to move to a weapon. They may calculate that we don't know when Israel is going to attack us again, so we have to do what we can to prepare now, and the best defense we can have is a nuclear weapon. You're giving them every reason in the world to come to that conclusion. We just have to hope that doesn't, because that will cause even more instability. We'll talk about that on a future show in the region and possibly even elsewhere in the world. But now then with this issue here in Syria, now then they're keeping everything volatile. So you've provided motivation for all these other groups that are already not happy with al-Sharaa to be even more so and to be less likely to work with them, because they see that the Syrian army can't do anything to Israel. Israel can, with impunity, attack into its capital city and continues to weaken the regime. And so now then you're just going to have more chaos. So the fundamentals that were involved in the 2011 civil war in Syria are likely now to increase. It's a rational view that probably those groups are going to be less likely to work with Sharaa now that they see how weak he is on the international stage, and they may want to try to press it. He will undoubtedly use his military forces and security forces to try and keep some peace and to try and quell any unrest that happens. And we're going to run the risk that Israel may again launch into Syria and to fight against them. But all that's going to do is keep the pot stirred up. So as long as we keep going down, and the United States has helped this, and Sharah in that comment there mentioned that he had help from the United States, and he was happy about that. And according to all the accounts we helped to, again, stop the fighting, but that didn't end any of the circumstances because none of the fundamentals have been reached. And then he also mentioned help from Turkey, and the Turkish foreign minister also weighed in. I believe that was earlier today on this situation.
نقلنا إلى الجانب الإسرائيلي عبر جهاز استخباراتنا موقفنا من التطورات في سوريا، فالجميع يدرك أننا لا نريد حالة من عدم الاستقرار هناك، وأن الأحداث التي وقعت جنوب سوريا وأسفرت عن سقوط مدنيين لا يمكن حلها ما لم تتحرك الحكومة السورية لضبط الوضع أمنيا. ومن غير المقبول أن تقوم إسرائيل بتحريض بعض أبناء الطائفة الدرزية هناك ودعمهم ليصبحوا عاملا في زعزعة الاستقرار. أما الاشتباكات الجارية بين الدروز والبدو فيجب أن تحسم بتدخل من قوات الأمن السورية حماية لأرواح المدنيين.
You see, he's basically kind of on the Syrian side of saying, hey, they're going to have to send their security forces back in there again. Well, Israel has just set a standard that says, no, they can't. And I assure you that dispute in the southern Syria is only going to intensify, because now the guys who were against Sharah think that Israel has their back. Meanwhile, Turkey said, we don't want that. The United States says we don't want that either. But all the fundamentals are there for it to continue on. So as long as everybody in the region keeps looking after their own narrow interest and feeling very free to use violence as a means to accomplish their ends, you are guaranteed to continue to have instability and within the country of Syria, within Iran, within Yemen, and really just throughout the whole region here. And again, I'll repeat what I said at the beginning. The best thing the United States could do for our national interest is withdraw our troops from the region. You don't have to get them all out, at least not right now. But certainly the troops that are in Syria, get them out. They do nothing but provide a point of strategic vulnerability for us. They don't do anything for our national security. We need to get them out of there. Same with Iraq, with Jordan. Our troops all they're doing is being vulnerable. Every day they run the risk that some of these violent extremist groups could try to attack them. It happens a lot. It doesn't get reported very often, because usually we're able to intercept it. But it's just a roll of the dice to wonder if the next one is going to succeed and there's going to be Americans wounded or killed. And there's no value for it. And with all of this instability, and with Israel being unwilling to even consider any kind of negotiation and any kind of diplomacy that could be win-win for everybody, and clearly Israel's not going to do that. They have this territory in Syria, and I don't see any evidence that they're even contemplating withdrawing from there. So I think that they're going to try to keep it. This is probably a permanent situation until somebody can force them out. And no one has the power to force them out right now. And so that means you're going to keep this instability going. That's going to keep friction with Turkey, as you see there, and some other countries in the regime, or other regimes in the region. And it's just going to remain volatile. So we've got to do what we can to protect ourselves. And I just wish that the administration would do something to put a little bit more pressure on Israel to lower some of the tensions. I don't see any evidence that's going to happen either. So for the foreseeable future, folks, this is just what we have to deal with. And that's what's going on right now. I wanted to bring you that update this morning. But that's all we got for you today. We will have this afternoon a show with William Hartung. First time we've had him on our show at 3 o'clock this afternoon. The Profits of War, Pentagon spending and who benefits. And it's not just that. We talk about this theme a lot on our show, and we're going to have William Hartung, who's done a lot of research that's going to show you just how reality this propensity is to produce war. And too many people profit from it, which means that there's not a lot of incentive for them to not want to have war and to go towards what we all believe here on this channel, and most of you who watch, that we need diplomacy to end the war and end the suffering. But we'll talk about that this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Thanks very much. Be sure and like and subscribe if you haven't done it yet. We'll look forward to seeing you this afternoon on the Daniel Davis Deep Dive.